Hello, everyone. We had an absolute masterclass in getting through these testimonies without crying from Lauren the other week, so I'm going to try and replicate that, but we'll see. Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. It's wonderful to have you all here. It's a strange day and a wonderful day for so many reasons, mostly to do with the big tank of water at our feet, but also because it's one of those all too rare days in life where all these different facets of your life collide in one room, and it's just lovely. So thank you all for being here. Some of you I've known my entire life, and some a matter of months, and some of you I've met this morning. I can say without a doubt that all of you, no matter your time served, have had a part to play in getting me here today, whether you know it or not. So thank you for being here, and thank you for getting me here today. In a way, you could say this isn't my first time round with baptism. I was brought up in a family with a deep, wonderful Catholic faith, a faith that my siblings and I were lucky enough to have shared with us from the very beginning. And it was a wonderful way to be brought up in Holy Trinity Church, just down the road from here. I'll always cherish those years at Holy Trinity Church. But like so many teenagers who know it all, around 14 or 15, I decided this faith stuff wasn't for me. Sorry. It was all so smooth until I got up here. I didn't know God, he didn't know me, and I decided I didn't need him. Frankly, my physics lessons made far more sense than what Father Jerry or my RE teachers were telling me at school. Despite my sureness that this was the right move for me, my parents will probably confirm that when I sat down with them and said I didn't want to come to church anymore, I cried. Maybe I knew what I was leaving behind. Standing here now, having made this decision, I wish I could say that things fell apart after that choice, but things were all right. School, exams, uni, first jobs sort of flew by fairly seamlessly, and I was living the life that I'd always sort of dreamed of for 20-something-year-old Sam. But beneath it all, and I sort of apologise for the cliche phrasing, there was something missing. I couldn't tell you what it was. The best way I could describe it was like a hole in your favourite t-shirt. Small at first, so small you don't notice, but one day you catch a glimpse of it in the mirror, and it's a shame, you think, but this is my favourite t-shirt, I love it, I'm going to crack on, leave it there. You ignore it, and you ignore it, and you ignore it, but that hole grows, sometimes passively, sometimes because you're picking away at it, until eventually you look in the mirror one day and there's more hole in your t-shirt than t-shirt left on your back. And you walk around, and it's not a nice way to be. You feel embarrassed, you feel not whole, but you don't know what to do about it. That was me 5-ish years ago, living that life I'd dreamed of for 20-something-year-old me, but under it all feeling pretty sad, pretty angry, and pretty lost, really. Fast forward a bit from there, and along comes Beth. I won't go over the whole tale, but Beth and I seem to have been in a sort of distant orbit around each other for most of our lives, spiralling in closer until eventually we meet in Nando's, of all places. I realise how this sounds. It's not leading to a proposal, I promise. Beth, around that time, was looking for a church with Connie and Joe, and they tried a few and landed at Four Oaks, and in wanting to support Beth, I came along with her. Walked into this strange building, devoid of the stained glass and altar servers I was used to from a church, and with a distinct smell of wonderful coffee. And I sat through the services, but always reminding myself that I'm here for Beth. This is to support Beth. It's not for me. I've been here, done this. Didn't work out. Remember why you're here. But credit to Phil. He talks with a way that will make even the most staunch atheist listen. And I did. And before I knew it, I was listening and taking it in again and reassessing what these words that I'd abandoned 10 years ago meant for me now. And I saw faith lived out in a new way. I saw it in Phil's sermons. I saw it in the coffee shop. I saw it in Beth and her family, in Connie and Joe, in the music, in the children running around this place, causing complete havoc, but remaining so loved and so safe in this place. And what followed was, frankly, the most deep and humbling journey I've yet to experience. At the time, I was living in Kent still, and after a Sunday at church and spending it with Beth's family usually, I was facing a 4-hour drive back to Kent the next day. But in the evenings, Beth would always be singing this song that we're going to hear soon, Reckless Love, which planted a seed in my head. And I don't mind admitting I spent the entire 4-hour journey back to Kent singing that song most Monday mornings at 4 a.m. I heard Phil's sermons, I heard that song, I heard the music, and my walls crumbled, slowly at first, and then all at once. That all at once moment came on our Alpha course about a couple of months ago now. For those of you who don't know what Alpha is, it's a kind of course for Christians and non-Christians alike, getting to know God, figuring out what it's all about. And this was our second time round. We'd done one in the middle of lockdown over Zoom, which was great, and it had given me an introduction to all of this stuff. But second time round, when we could meet in person, we could eat together, and we created this wonderful safe space where you can ask the stupid questions, an all too rare thing, I think. And then we go on this weekend away to this wonderful country house, and I wasn't feeling it, to be honest. We got there, I was feeling heavy. I'd just started a new job the week before. I was tired, and I was borderline not going to go. Woke up on the next morning while we were there, feeling the same way, and I thought, I need to shift this. I'm going to ruin everything that this weekend could possibly be. So I took myself out on a run. I thought, I'll clear my head. I got to the halfway point on my run, still feeling the same way, which is weird. Running's my safe space. It's where I clear myself. And I stopped in this random country lane in the middle of nowhere and thought, right, no, this isn't life stress. It's not work stress. This is the stress of a friend being at your door and knocking and you not opening the door. And in that moment, I'll never be able to explain why, but I stopped and out loud just said, God, will you come into my life? I need you. Come and fill me up and help me. And he did. And I ran a really quick second leg home to come and tell everyone. It's only recently that, maybe if I paid more attention in those RE lessons, that I realised that song that I sang for, thousands of repetitions at this point on the way back from Birmingham, talks about the 99. And for those of you who did pay attention, you'll realise that's a reference to the parable of the lost sheep, which, if you'll humour me, I'd love to read for you. This is from Luke 15. It says, tax collectors and other notorious sinners often came to listen to Jesus teach. This made the Pharisees and teachers of religious law complain that he was associating with such sinful people, even eating with them. So Jesus told them this story. If a man has 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what will he do? Won't he leave the 99 others in the wilderness and go to search for the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he will joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. When he arrives, he will call together his friends and neighbours, saying, rejoice with me because I've found my lost sheep. In the same way, there is more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over 99 others who are righteous and who have strayed and who haven't strayed away. That started ringing true for me recently, and I kind of realised that when I turned on that country road and asked God to join me, and I ran home again, I was running home on his shoulders as that lost sheep. And now I'm here, and just figuring out what this journey means for me now. Luckily, at the moment, it seems to involve pulling a lot of lights in churches, which is wonderful. Just feeling very lucky, feeling saved from lost, being angry, and just thankful that I've found a God who I know, who loves me and who I love. Thank you all for being here today. That's it.
Well, there's quite a few damp eyes in the room. I completely understand that. Oh, mate. We're going to move down into the water at this point, and if you've got any Bible verses that you feel maybe God's put on your heart, amazing. Has anybody got anything that they would like to share at this point? Yes, bring it.
Thanks, Phil. Hi, everyone. I'm Simon. I'm Sam's dad. So this is a reading from the first book of Samuel, of course. One night, Samuel was lying in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of the God was. Then the Lord called Samuel. And he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." But Eli said, "I did not call. Go back and lie down." So he went and lay down. Again he called, "Samuel." And Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." "My son," Eli said, "I did not call you. Go and lie down." Samuel did not yet know the Lord, and the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. The Lord called Samuel a third time, and Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." And then Eli realized that the Lord was calling the boy, and he said to Samuel, "Go and lie down, and if he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place, and the Lord came and stood there, calling as at the other times, "Samuel, Samuel." And he said, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening."
So I've only heard bits of your testimony, so it's just makes me laugh that I feel like God's put this on my heart, but it's the parable of the lost sheep. From Matthew 18, verse 12. So, if a man has 100 sheep and one of them wanders away, what will he do? Won't he leave the 99 others on the hill and go out to search for the one that is lost? And if he finds it, I tell you the truth, he will rejoice over it more than any other of the 99 that did wander away. And just think, I've seen how much reckless love has had such a major part to play in your faith journey, and your story. So yeah.
As Matthew 5, verse 16. "In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven."
Oh, thank you. I read this at Beth's baptism as well, but I think it applies to you both as a pair. Jeremiah 29 verse 11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future."
Hi, Sam. So this is the same reading that I gave to Lauren, and it's from Ephesians 3, and it would have... It's from Ephesians 3, verse 17. "Then Christ will make his home in your hearts as you trust in him. Your roots will now grow down into God's love and keep you strong. And may you have the power to understand, as all God's people should, how wide, how long, how high, and how deep his love is for you. Anyone else?
I'm going to read Ephesians 2. It says, God saved you by his grace when you believed. And you can't take credit for this. It is a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we have done, so none of us can boast about it, for we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Jesus Christ, so we can do the good things he planned for us long ago.
So I know how many people have been praying for you up to and, from the moment you made that decision. And I read this morning. It's from Colossians 1, from verse 9. It says, "And so from the day we heard, we have not ceased to pray for you, asking that you may be filled with the knowledge of his will in all spiritual wisdom and understanding, so as to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing to him, bearing fruit in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God, being strengthened with all power according to his glorious might for all endurance and patience with joy, giving thanks to the Father who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of the saints in light. He has delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son." Don't forget that inheritance.
Amazing. So when I was... Nick and I were just climbing to bed last night, and she said, "Have you got a verse for Sam?" And I was like, "Not yet." And I was like, "No, wait, now I do. We're good." So anyway, in First Joshua, like there's two books. There's one. In Joshua chapter 1, verse 6, this is God speaking to Joshua, and he says this: "Be strong and courageous." And then he goes on, verse 7, and says, "Be strong and very courageous." And then it says, "Be careful to obey all the instructions that Moses gave you. Do not deviate from them, turning either to the right or to the left. Then you will be successful in everything you do. Study this book of instruction continually. Meditate on it day and night, so that you will be sure to obey everything that's written in it. Only then will you prosper and succeed in all you do. This is my commandment," and I love this: "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." I just got that sense of God's just kind of saying to you, Sam, actually this journey that you've been on up to this point, it's not by accident. All of the hard work that family and friends have put in from childhood, these have all been stuff that's stored in the back of your mind. And because God's got you a purpose for you that he wants for you to be able to walk in. But it comes at a requirement, as with all things, is that God's saying, here, I've got this for you. If you will walk this way, this is what I want to give. And there's that sense of there's going to be times in life where you're going to be naturally afraid. There's going to be times when life goes off slightly skew-iff and you can be asking God, where are you in the midst of it? And I just feel that kind of command, which comes back to be strong and courageous. You might not feel it, but your strength comes from him, not from you. Yeah? Amen. So we're gonna say a few different stuff. Then the words are going to come up on the screen. I'm going to ask Sam 2 questions, and these are going to be based around his faith, like a declaration of faith in front of all of us. And then the third one is I'm going to ask you guys as family, as friends, and as a church. And the question will be: do you support him? Will you support him in his faith as he walks forward? And up till that point, he will be saying, "I do." And then when we get to that point, you'll be then saying, "We do." Okay? Nice and easy for you? Yeah? Okay, amazing. So, Sam, do you confess that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that he came to earth to save you from your sin, and that he died and rose again?
I do.
Just as Jesus laid down his life for you, do you now lay down your life for him?
I do.
Amazing. And church, do you, church, promise to love, support, and encourage Sam in his faith? We do. Thank you. I love it. Love it. Fabulous. Amazing. Right. Well then, in in confession of your faith, we baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So, I'm going to be doing just literally a really small reading, actually, but it's from Isaiah chapter 64. In verse 8 it says, "And yet, O Lord, you are our Father. We are the clay, and you are the potter. We all are formed by your hand." I love church. I love church. I love church for multiple reasons. I love this because this is a gathering for the majority. I mean, on days like today, it's slightly more unusual because we've got so many people who are not part of our church but have come to join us. But generally speaking, church is a gathering of people with, realistically, if you were to take God out of the scenario, probably not a massive amount in common. In fact, actually, if you were honest, as we to chat to different people, where do you come from? Well, we've got people coming in from all over the place. Some people coming in weekly from the likes of Wild Green, from Tamworth, from over in Aldridge. We've got people coming from literally the houses. We have a couple of people that live exactly opposite us and who the walk to church takes all of 30 seconds. So there's a real mixture. But equally, church is made up of people of different walks of life, different ages, different personal battles, all of these things. And actually, would most of these people have found each other and chose to hang out if it wasn't for church? Probably not. But we could say that about a lot of other social settings too, couldn't we? But church is different because the one thing that holds them in common is the one thing that actually is quite special. I think if you were to sit down and have a conversation with most of the people in our church, most of them would tell you this journey that they've been on. It's very similar to Sam's. I mean, there'll be elements of it which sound really similar, and there'll be elements of it that sound completely different. If you were here a couple of weeks back and you heard Lauren's story is quite different. I think that some of us have grown up in Christian homes and we've actually been blessed to have a foundation laid, yet for others who have grown up in a completely secular environment means that their journey is going to be very different. You hear of testimonies of people who have come to know Jesus who were previously in a different faith altogether. And so I love church because it's a collection of different stories that have all collided together and start to become something really quite special in itself. And so, for me, I really love our church, and to be part of it is a real joy. And to see the various different people and the life and what that looks like, I think is brilliant. But one of the things that I love, and if you were to sit down and talk through with most of us, our stories are similar on quite a few aspects. And that is this. Listen, the world out there gives completely unachievable goals in order to find and maintain happiness. So we're told, and we just see this the way that schooling is done. We see this in the way that our magazines are done. We see this in the films that we watch, in the music that we listen to. Over and over and over again, we're told that to succeed in life, I have to achieve in life. To succeed means I need to achieve. And so there's this massive pressure on us to be able to achieve. Now, what does success look like? And again, does success mean inner peace, inner happiness? Well, we're told that comes once we've achieved a whole series of other things. And so there's this overarching narrative that's sold to us over and over again that I've got to have the right house. I've got to drive the right car. that I've got to have, the right kind of people around me. My house has got to be filled with the right types of things. I have to dress according to this season's must-have. That ladies, you've got to earn how many pairs of shoes? There's that kind of sense of so much pressure that's involved in order to be able to say, this is what success looks like. But the reality is that majority of us, even if we manage to get close to that, don't feel the peace and the joy that I'm told is supposed to come with that. It's true. And I think that there's this push and this pressure that sits on each of us in order to be able to get there, in order to be able to find it. But as I said at the beginning, how many of us are busy? Well, we're busy because we're trying to do well in life. And busyness comes in so many different ways. If you're a parent, busyness looks like 5:30 in the morning when your child wakes up and decides, nope, today starts now. And as a parent, you're going, no, today starts in another 3 hours, please. Being there? Yeah? So busyness can start like that. For other people, busyness is running a business and the chaos that goes with that and all of the different plates that you're trying to be spinning. It could be that you're trying to do education at the same time as trying to hold down a job. And I know the pressure that comes with that. Busyness. So in theory, if I'm achieving and doing well, shouldn't I be feeling that sense of peace and joy? But that's not the case, is it? If I hurry and spend my life in hurry mode, busy mode, achieving mode, I've got it. I've got my A game on. I'm really in the zone. Am I feeling peace and joy? No, because that seems to be the opposite, doesn't it? So what is life? Why do I like church? I love church because it is the gathering of people who, along this journey, have realized that actually we can't do it on our own. That's what this is about. Life is full of hardships. We have a bit of a motto in our church. Life is messy. Life is messy. Anybody else feel that? Have you got it all together? Is life amazing for you? Every big box is ticked. No. Hardship comes in so many different ways. It could be financial, and hey, we're here in Mere Green on the very cusp of Four Oaks. If you want to look like you've got it together, you own a house on Four Oaks, right? We are in the upper middle class area. And so there's so much that's out there. But there's just this kind of sense of what does it look like? Well, do you know what? So many people put themselves into such massive amounts of debt in order to be able to hold the keeping up with the neighbors down. So poverty, we just naturally presume when we talk about poverty, we're talking about the guy who sleeps rough. But actually, poverty could look like driving a BMW 5 Series. Poverty could look like owning a 5-bedroom house. Because the panic and the nervousness and all the hardships that comes from trying to hold down life is there. Life throws us all sorts of stuff. So it could be financial. Some of the stuff that life hits us with is literal bumps and bruises. Life's not easy. For some of us, it's the physical. It could be sickness, it could be ailments, it could be the stuff that we live with, it could be medication-based, it could be, there's so much of the bumps and bruises. It could be relationship-wise, where the relationship that you've had, that you've trusted, you've given your life to somebody and they've hurt you, they've knocked you, they've broken. Maybe you've tried to hold it all down, and actually with that has come failure in relationships, and that too holds brokenness. You see, each of us, our stories, as much as we've got some stuff together and we're holding it down, our lives are also full of stuff that's actually hurt us on our journey to where we are. And that's one of the things that we all share in common. Your bumps and your bruises may look different to the person next to you. But we do our best to carry on, to keep the smile, and hold ourselves together, if not for us, for our loved ones around us. But we all know brokenness. Why do I love church? Because as we come with our brokenness, and Sam explained it, and as he was trying to explain like the sub-narrative that's kicking off within his story that brought him to here, as he talked about like struggling to be able to hold down the anger and the lust and that side of stuff. To others, you know, the brokenness looks completely differently. And for me, I can identify with that. You know, my story that brought me to here is that I was married and divorced. And that shame that comes with divorce is something that's really difficult to deal with. And as you look back, it's so easy for us to spend our time walking backwards, looking at all of the brokenness that our lives has cast upon others, as much as that our brokenness is cast upon ourselves. Our own decisions hurt us as much as they hurt other people. And so some of the hardships that we walk around with and the brokenness is self-inflicted, and some of it is not. And so this is why I love church, because as we come together, we recognize that actually there's an element of brokenness within each of us, and there's a need for somebody who is bigger and who has got it together, who's going to walk into our lives and promise that, hey, listen, when we become a Christian, it doesn't mean that suddenly we're put in a bubble and everything's beautiful. That doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean that because I'm a Christian suddenly means that I'm never going to deal with any form of illness. I mean, just take age for itself. Like, God doesn't promise us that. What does God promise? He promises that he will walk with us, that he has a plan that he wants to bring us into, and that plan will be something that is exciting on that journey as we come through together. This is why I love church. Now, if you've come to our church, if you've been to our church pre the last 3 weeks, then you'll recognize our building has changed a little bit, wouldn't you? If you've never been here before, you just presumed our church always looks like this. It didn't. We've had so much fun over the last kind of couple of months, really, and just kind of dreaming up what this place could look like. We wanted to try and make sure our church and our coffee shop actually had the same sort of vibe. We spent time choosing colors that would match. Because of the reclaimed wood through there, we decided we'd own that in here as well. And so we put out a plea for pallets. And actually, would you believe it, that all of these pieces of wood, as pretty as they look and vast in color differences, but you have to just go with me on this, right? But when you spend time sanding down a piece of wood and suddenly finding the grains underneath it and start to see that this ugly piece of wood actually is really quite pretty, that actually you get quite excited. And so I remember there was a few of us, Andy, Sam, myself, Ian helped out as well. We had a gentleman called Ted in his 90s who was out there literally putting us all to shame, like ripping apart these pallets. But yeah, so many of us kind of like just really got involved and actually enjoyed it. But like there was points where we would just be standing there just admiring this piece of wood. Bit geeky, isn't it? Yeah? Anyways, but there's that kind of like sense of so we've come through this whole journey of like taking these pallets. So when they come to us, they look like this, right? And I don't know if you can see that from where you are. That is, sorry Sam, I've just put it in front of you, beautiful cross. But these are battered. They are got nails in them. The nails have rusted. And so the first job that we do is we take these pieces of wood and we split them up. So if you can see, I've got a piece here, and they are literally ingrained in dirt and filth. And most of them have been absolutely knocked about, battered, and have bruised to the point that the reason we have them is because they've been discarded. Like, they're now rubbish. Some of these we managed to pick up by driving around one of the estates where all the businesses are, and actually just collected a few, literally just off the side of the streets. Others have come to us because people have done some gardening work, and the gardeners have come in, and the stuff that they've ordered has arrived on a pallet. They've used the stuff on the pallet. What do you do with it now? Well, the pallet's now going to be discarded. Some of these, as we go through them and we start to kind of go through the journey of plying them apart, some of these planks just want to be rescued. I mean, literally very little, and suddenly they start to pop off. And those are fabulous, aren't they? I'm looking at Andy. We've had some fun with other bits. Some bits just don't want to be rescued, and you're you're giving it some just to be able to get it to, you got the leverage right, everything should work, and the whole thing splits straight down the center. And there's that sense of like, oh, especially when you've been working on the other side, this bit's fine, and you start on the other side of it, and then it breaks. That's a heartbreaking moment. So we end up with these planks, and then our job then is to actually start to take these planks and to start to work on them. And so on the other side of that is, this is what it looks like when we first get it. And then as we start to sand it down, here in my hand, I was about to explain. So what we then do is we then we run it through what's called a belt sander, and the belt sander's got a really coarse sand grit on it. And so what that does is the machine pretty much eats up the front section, and it literally just pretty much tears it off. And we then start to smooth the edges as best as we can. We then take that and we then run it through a orbital sander, and the orbital sander has got a much higher grit level on it, which makes it smooth to the touch. One of the reasons we want to do that is because, well, we have children in our midst, and I don't know about you if you've ever had kids. Kids like to touch everything, right? And the last thing I want to do is be explaining to parents why all of our kids have got splinters. So we basically do this to make them as touchable as possible, and actually there's something really quite nice about wood once it's actually come up to that level. But I don't know if you've noticed that in every single one of our pieces of wood, and as you look through it, you can still see many of the bumps and bruises that are in it. And we spend a bit of time trying to work out how much do we want to make these look perfect. You see, because what we could have done is we could have planed them down so they would look like brand new planks. We could have worked out where all the bumps and bruises and all the old nails were within it and chopped it off so that we end up with just perfect planks. And don't get me wrong, that would have looked lovely, wouldn't it? But what we chose to do is we chose to go with each and every bump and groove on it. And I just want to encourage you just to have a look. We've got some that have got literal holes in the middle of them. We've got some of them which start off straight and then start to go in. We've got bits that almost look like they're not quite at right angles. Why? Because they add character. And there's something really beautiful about that. And I don't know about you, but I think I can kind of identify myself as being one of these. Like, my life's been difficult at points. I've took some knocks, I've took some bumps along the way. That my life has been points where actually it's been difficult. There's been times where actually I've really found getting up in the morning actually really difficult. For me, I've mentioned this, I've battled with depression for the majority of my adult life, and there's times where I'm on cloud nine, like life's good. And then the next day, for no reason, I'm not. Nothing's changed. From the day before to now, nothing's changed, yet still there's something has just grabbed hold of me. And sometimes Nick, my wife, is the first person to notice it. Are you having a low day today? And sometimes her just stating that is quite nice, because I'm able to go, oh yeah, that's what it is. There's nothing externally that's happening. It's just something that's internally. I'm aware that my life has had knocks and bumps and bruises. I'm pretty certain each of us have too. And so for us, as we chose to kind of work with these, we decided to keep them looking the way that they are. But, yeah, the best part, and this is why I say, one piece of wood on its own sanded down is okay. There's nothing amazing about it, right? But when you then start to put it alongside others, and each of them have got slightly different hues, slightly different colors, and in front of me now I've got some which almost, this piece particularly on the top, almost looks like it's a brand new plank if it wasn't for this weird colored part over here. Yet it's still got the nail holes in it. The one underneath it's got some wonderful ashy colors. The one underneath it has got some massive knots and bumps and bruises. Can I just point out, I'm a bit of a wood geek, right? For me, my pastime is, and I'm going to admit this in public, I carve wooden spoons. Yes, I'm that hippie, right? I'm the one that carves wooden spoons. And so I love to go out, look at a particular tree, work out what piece I could take, and within that piece of wood, I can see the spoon, and I'm basically trying to take away all the bits that are not spoon and be left with a spoon. And I like to make them look beautiful when they're finished as well. That's me. So when I see this, I get really excited. I'm aware some of you are sitting there going, oh my gosh, he just talked about wood for the entire talk. Bear with me, humor me if you would. But there is something quite beautiful about when all the wood goes together. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to quickly just drop a couple of screws into this. I'm not making this easy for myself, am I? Shall I bring the microphone closer to it so you can really hear it? Okay, so what I'm holding now is an all together. And again, this is why I really love church. Because as you actually begin to see that now, all the different colours, the nasty piece of wood that I was looking at the top suddenly actually looks quite different to the ones next to it. But yet there's still some element of character to it. And this is why church matters. Because on our own, there's beauty to our story. But why do I love church? Because it's an amalgamation of all of our stories coming together. Each one of them, with their bumps and their bruises that still remain, yet they're being sanded down. They're in the right hands. These stories become something of beauty. And that's why I love church. Because every person that comes here has got a story of brokenness. Yet a story where they've been rescued, much like the planks. Some of us feel like we've been discarded. Life's just thrown one, and suddenly that's the way we feel. Yet with each of these planks, they've been rescued. They've been redeemed. They've been given a new purpose as they've been repurposed. This is the beauty of church, because actually on its own, it's a great story. But alongside everybody else's, it becomes something quite beautiful. So I'm just going to finish off with my last bit, and that's this. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but actually, as nice as these look, they don't look quite as nice as the planks behind me. And there's a reason for that. And here, in a pot beside me, I have a sponge, and I've got some yellow liquid, which, no, it's not what you think it is. Although I'm clearly drinking enough water, if that's the case. So this is called teak oil. And teak oil is pretty much the same color, as you can see, as the wood itself. But as you start to apply the oil, and this I think is the final analogy of what God starts to do with us, is that as he begins to work his spirit into us and starts to work its way into our lives, all the grains in this wood start to show. And what was quite an ugly piece of wood suddenly changes into something quite beautiful. The darkers become darker, the lighters take on an extra element of colour to it. When you hit a knot, I don't know if you watched that just then, it changes colour entirely. As I work down to the next one, this one's got some greys in it. It's got some browns over here. As you start to work it across, you start to see elements of almost pink as they start to work their way through. And in the right hands, our lives start to make sense. And this is what God's all about. Is not only does he want to work out some of those nasty bumps and bruises that have really hurt us, and to take away the parts of ourselves that we're not proud of, like we do as we start to sand away all of the splinters. But he's not happy just leaving it there. What he wants to do is, as he puts his spirit into each of us, he wants to start to bring out the beauty that was always there, but only he can start to release. Look at that, changing colour there. I told you I was a geek. And what you end up with is now something really quite pretty. Why do I love church? Because this is where our stories start to matter. Guys, be proud of your stories. Be proud of your bumps and bruises. Be proud of the stuff where life goes wrong, yet God's still in the midst of it. Because in his hands, our bumps and our bruises become something of beauty. Shall we pray? Lord Jesus, I thank you that you promise to walk with us. I thank you that you know us better than we know ourselves. Scripture tells us you know how many hairs are on our head. You know our thoughts before they even become words. You know our best and our worst. And Lord, each of us have got our own stories of bumps and bruises, but Lord, in your hands, you can work a miracle. And so Jesus, here and now, we ask you, would you meet with us? Would you take us deeper into the things of you? Lord, we ask this in Jesus' precious name. Amen. I'm going to hand over to our musicians at this point, and I'm going to leave that there. But we're going to finish off by singing our final song, and during our final song, we're going to take our offering, and we have a plate which will be put on that chair there in a moment when I go fetch it. And don't feel under any obligation whatsoever to give. When I know a lot of people think church is just after your money. It's not that at all. But if you would like to give, please feel free. The bank details are on the screen because actually these days, let's face it, everything's digital. So please feel free to give that way. Like I said, at the end of the service, we want you to linger. We want for you to stay. And I don't know, maybe if some aspect of today's service has grabbed your heart or like inspired something within you and you're like, this I want to know more about. And I just want to encourage you, just to grab one of us. Have a chat with Sam, have a chat with Beth, have a chat with myself, with Nick, with any of us that are here and actually just say, hey, listen, talk me through this because I want to know more, and we would be absolutely privileged to be able to do just that. Thanks a lot.